Here we go, Brooklyn Nets fans. This should be much better. Thank you all for tuning in here to our off-season checkup 1.0. It has been a roller coaster of an off-season for the Brooklyn Nets, from the draft to trades to the Cam Thomas conundrum and so much more. And also future moves that I think will be coming up next for the Brooklyn Nets. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Smash the like button and hit subscribe here on a Tuesday evening edition of the Brooklyn Boys. I am your host, Josh Wooliver, while Connor Long is in the air on his way to a family vacation in Italy. Appreciate you all tuning in. Smash the like button and hit subscribe on your way into the building here on our road to 500 subscribers. Helps us grow tremendously. You guys mean a ton to us here on the show. You guys are the best. So say what's up in the comments. I know we had a little problem with a tech issue on our first try at the stream, but here we are. You guys are the best. So thank you all for tuning in on our 2.0 edition of trying to get this stream up and running. So throw out questions, comments, thoughts in the chat, and I'll restart from where you guys could not hear me on the first stream. Let me know, please. If you guys got me and if you guys can hear me in the chat. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Look, for this Brooklyn Nets team, it has been a roller coaster of an offseason. They have been extremely active, has Sean Marks in the front office. To start things off, you obviously have to trace all the way back to late June when the NBA draft hit Net fans extremely hard. A lot of us, myself included, thought Sean Marks would trade up and deal with a sixth of the first round in his pocket. Instead, he sat back and took all 5 of his picks. Look, you got 3 guards that honestly are very similar, in how they play overall. You got 3-point guards in Dioman, you got Saraf, you got Traore. So the Nets are stacked at the guard spot for years to come. And I didn't love it at the time, but you got to give these guys their chance to develop. And on a not good Brooklyn Nets team that's going to win probably less than 25 games, this is a team that, if there's any year to take 5 rookies and have it be in a, best pick, best value situation, the Nets didn't go into the draft having specific positions of needs to draft into, trying to fill specific holes on this roster. It was best player available situation for Brooklyn, and Sean Marks was able to take advantage of that, drafting who he felt were the best fits for this Nets team, regardless of the fact that he was stacking up guards left and right that, probably will not complement each other, too well. But overall, this is a team that could go far if these rookies are able to develop in the future. And Jordi Fernandez has his guys in his system, and he is ready to develop them. So the first point of the offseason, it was a tough watch of a draft for me as a Net fan to be able and have it sink in, the fact that Nets could have easily traded back up into the late lottery and gotten guys like, you could have gotten Derek Queen, or you could have gotten even another guy like you could have gotten Asenge. So there was a lot of prospects I was very high on, but the fact that Sean Marks sat back didn't exactly make me happy. But look, here we are in a situation where we cannot reverse what happened in the draft. And that's also had a busy offseason regarding trades, where you had a lot go down. The latest of them being Haywood Highsmith from the Miami Heat for a very protected and you give up a very protected second-round pick to earn Miami's in 2032. So that's a situation where, unless the Nets are a top 5 team in the league this year, and at that point, forget all about the second-round pick if this team is making a playoff run at all, you throw the second-round pick out the window. That means absolutely nothing to you. And for a little over $5 million of a salary dump, you have no problem taking on that contract whatsoever, with still $20 million in your back pocket worth of salary cap to work with. Sean Marks in the front office has no problem dishing out $5 million and allocating that to a guaranteed money of Haywood Highsmith, even though, there's a chance that he misses the first 2-3 months of this season injured. If he is on the floor for this Brooklyn Nets team, he can give you defensive upside, can shoot quality from three, almost 40% in limited opportunity with Miami. So, obviously he needs that shot selection to go up. He was probably held back in Miami behind guys like Jimmy Butler in his tenure down there. But look, this is a Nets team. I've spoken about it all off season, that shot quantity is going to be there. You're going to be able to get guys into the rotation, even if they're guys that you look around the league and you say, man, this guy's on the G League basically anywhere else. But Brooklyn is going to be able to allocate minutes to those guys this season, especially post deadline. So I don't mind the Haywood Highsmith trade. I'm giving it a pretty high grade in my book, considering you're basically getting a free second round pick for it, and you still have a bunch of salary money cap in terms to move forward with. But the biggest trade of the offseason, the one that moved the most heads, was sending Michael Porter Jr., who's been in the news lately for his podcasting antics. You get Michael Porter Jr. in a 2032 first-round pick from the Denver Nuggets, and you give up Cameron Johnson, obviously a pivotal role player for this Nets team in the recent 3 or so years. He's been able to shoot well from three-point land, and he's been a good passer. But look, when you get a 2032 first-round pick and the shooter Michael Porter Jr. can be on the court specifically and not, behind the mic saying some questionable things when he's out of the national media spotlight, absolutely you take that trade for the Nets. I think it's a trade-off where you grab your first-round pick on the table, and then there's a good chance that Michael Porter Jr. is averaging close to 25 points a game this season, in which case next offseason is the time when you turn around and flip him for possibly even more first-round picks. So Sean Marks has set himself up in a good position with that trade to be able to snag the first-round pick immediately from Denver, probably by 2032. That's not a good Nuggets team unless they're having a crazy dynasty with Nikola Jokic, and he's continuing his MVP performances all the way down 7 years down the line from now. But Sean Marks has set himself up to grab that first-round pick immediately from Denver, and then also having an asset as Michael Porter Jr. is to be able to shop him later on in his Nets tenure and get even more value for him. So two good trades there, absolutely, for this team. They made a couple also, smaller ones here and there, but the biggest glaring issue, the biggest glaring topic and headline for this Nets team is gonna be Cam Thomas. Any way you look at it, a guy that coming into the offseason, I told Net fans that he has about a 95% chance of re-signing with this team because there was no other squad in the NBA who had the cap space to take him. The Nets had all the money in the world, $40 million in cap space to work with heading into the 2025 offseason, and they have neglected to make Cam Thomas a priority in this offseason so far. Thomas, I was expecting to get a 2-3 year contract from him, anywhere a little lower than $20 million a year, but Sean Marks has been clear that he is going to stiffen up. He does not want to give Cam Thomas the money that he thinks he deserves. So obviously, there's been a stalemate these last couple months, and as the days go by, it seems like more and more likely that Cam Thomas comes back to Brooklyn on this $6 million qualifying offer, has one more year under his belt before he hits unrestricted free agency next summer, and then obviously it would make the most sense from there for the Brooklyn Nets to shop him out, get value for him while you still can. And at that point, with the contract that low, you have a lot of teams that would be interested in taking on Cam Thomas, as opposed to you sign and trade him on your own dime. You're probably looking at closer to $20 million and hitting close to that mid-level exception. So there's a lot of NBA franchises that are going to have a tough time taking on that contract if you are not bringing him back under that $6 million qualifying offer. So the Cam Thomas situation, no further developments. The reporters on the Nets beat aren't getting anything. The Nets are just coming out stale. They are holding their ground firmly in this entire Cam Thomas arguments and disputes. He has since removed every Nets social media post from his profile, so it's clear that he probably doesn't want much to do with the Brooklyn Nets in the next coming years. And at this point, even if he's offered, closer to the money he's thinking, which at times has been reported to be 30, close to $40 million for Cam Thomas, there's a chance that he says, no, I'd rather hit unrestricted free agency next summer and get out of a losing organization like Brooklyn has been these past couple of years. So, an extremely sticky situation there with Thomas that, again, we do not have any further developments on as I check in with you here on August 19th. The preseason will approach on October the 4th is the first game at the Barclays Center. Camp opens in late September. So if Cam Thomas isn't reported to training camp by then, man, that the Nets front office day by day seems more and more likely that they're just going to be willing to trade and shop Cam Thomas instead of valuing what he can do for an NBA franchise. Smash the like button, hit subscribe here to the Brooklyn Boys Show on our road to 500 subscribers. We're only 55 away, so all of your support is much appreciated. Take to the chat to drop questions, comments, thoughts like King Ribby, our guy, sticking with us on the program. Like and subscribe, share, shout out Josh. Thank you, King. You're the best. Take like King, hit up the comments section, throw all your thoughts, opinions in there, and I will react to all of those, whether it's Nets, whether it's NBA. Appreciate you all tuning in here on the program after some technical difficulties with the mic not working on the first show. Here we go on what should be an awesome second show, or a second run on the original show. As you see, we got the same title and description and everything, so hopefully just running it back with some better tech this time. Smash like, hit subscribe if you're in the building here. On top of the draft, on top of the Cam Thomas situation, the latest news out of Nets world has been some jersey situations. Haywood Highsmith has taken Kevin Durant's former number of 7, so not expecting him to live up to those expectations at all, but he snagged 7 off the table from the Nets. Danny Wolf has switched his number to 2, honoring the captain Derek Jeter up in the Bronx. Not kidding, but Wolf snags number 2. And then the most interesting out of the entire jersey situation is Nolan Traore has switched to wearing number 88, a number that has never been worn in Nets franchise history. An extremely interesting number for a rookie. I mean, this Nets team has a ton of open numbers with not a lot of retirees hanging from the Barclays Center rafters, but Traore opts for 88. I mean, that is a classic football tight end number right there. So, interesting call by Nolan Traore to take 88. I'm not hating. If he plays high-quality basketball, I got no issue with him snagging the number 88. But an interesting call to say nonetheless. That might be an eyesore for Brooklyn Nets fans. If you're planning on a Nolan Traore jersey, let me know if you're starting to think that you might want to take that back and swap it out for somebody else, because 88 in basketball, those are just two ideas that don't exactly mesh perfectly together. But again, Nolan Traore, if you feel comfortable in 88, you want to go hoop out in that, no issue at all wearing 88 for the Brooklyn Nets. Now, moving forward, the offseason seems to have wind down. The chaos of the draft and the beginning of free agency has cooled off and is behind us. But with $20+ million still in their back pocket, and roster spots, a ton of them at that, to still be decided, there's no more sleeping time for this Brooklyn Nets front office. They got to wake up, and moves will be to come. As for that final two-way spot, I have the Nets ditching that out to Chinese forward Fenbo Zhang, a guy that internationally in the Chinese basketball league has been an absolute hooper, a freak athlete. You look at some of his tape, some of his highlight reel plays. That man moves around the court and hops around like he's on a trampoline. I mean, that guy, he's flying around the basketball court. He's a guy that I would love to see his upside in. And he can shoot it, from 3, and he's on the bigger side to give you some depth. This Nets team is pretty clogged up at the forward spots, both the 3 and the 4. So Fenbo Zhang, definitely a guy I could see bouncing his way between Long Island and Brooklyn. Two-way spot seems fair. I don't think at this point the Nets are thinking that Zhang is a guy that they're going to convert to a standard contract, have him full-time on the full Brooklyn roster. But to me, seems like a perfect candidate for this final two-way spot. I suppose, the other option being the former Alabama star Grant Nelson, but Zhang to me presents a higher upside. Again, I'll keep hammering home the idea on these international prospects that potential. You have guys like Nikola Jokic, like Luka Doncic, who appear out of thin air for these teams and are making their cases for MVPs multiple years in a row now. So these international guys seem like the diamonds in the rough at this point in the where the NBA is at. It continues to be the idea that you shop overseas for guys, the more likely you are to find a hidden diamond in the rough. So if the Nets pull the needle in the haystack with Fenbo Zhang, that would be a dream come true. But the way you start that process out is by giving him a spot on this roster. So I would roster him, giving him that final two-way spot alongside uh, Tosan Awoma and Tyson Etienne. And then you also have to make even more roster space, especially after the signing of Zhang, is you got to try and shop vets. You got to have guys like Keon Johnson, even Zaire Williams, who's on the younger side, but guys like Terrence Mann are all players who you got to try and trade away, not only because you want their return, but because this Nets team needs to make room on this roster. So if you can get a Jalen Wilson, a Tyrese Martin, a Keon Johnson, a Zaire Williams out of here, yeah, it might hurt. This Nets team doesn't have a ton of depth at all, which is why they're going to end up being one of the worst teams in the entire NBA this year. But not only does it give you assets in return in terms of draft capital, even if that's a day two pick, even if you're looking at late second round material, but you're slowly but surely clearing out the roster and making space available for guys who have, absolutely earned to try to make a name for themselves here in Brooklyn. So this Nets team, has a lot of decisions to make on roster cut down day. Obviously, training camp, the preseason will be a huge factor in all that. So we'll keep a keen eye out for all these roster fringe guys. But look, even if, it's going to come down to cutting a certain number of these guys, you try and trade them away as much as you can. Try and get at least some return for them if you're Sean Marks, if you're the Nets front office, for a team that has as little of depth as you can. I promise you there are teams out there that are looking to beef up their 3 and D, whether it's a guy like Tyrese Martin, beef up their veteran presence with a Keon Johnson of sorts, or you take a former Summer League MVP, Jalen Wilson, off the Brooklyn Nets' hands. They'd be more than happy to. You get any return, and you are happy for that. So, absolutely, you have to look to trade a couple of these guys. Zaire Williams, Day'Ron Sharpe, Connor and I talked about this a couple episodes ago on the show. These are two guys that are much harder to give away for me. Sharpe, obviously, you just extended both of them to new 2-year contracts that haven't been officially inked, as the Nets want to hoard some of that cap space back to see what the Cam Thomas situation will be looking like. But don't worry, no teams from the outside are going to come in, swoop up Zaire or Day'Ron Sharpe. These are going to be two guys playing this year for the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets are just holding off on officially having these guys put pen to paper just so they can settle up and see what the final salary cap totals look like when the offseason is all said and done. But these are two guys that, especially Zaire Williams, I could see the Nets, even though having just committed them to them for 2 more years, you have a guy like Williams who's a lengthy 3 who can give you good defensive effort, who can be a 3-point shooter if you need him to be, but most importantly, work into the paint, be a good defender. And that's a plus on a contending team, especially in a weakening Eastern Conference. There are teams that would be willing to give you some assets for a guy like Zaire Williams, a key role player on a team like that. Again, guys that are harder to shop, but Sean Marks needs to make room on this roster any way he can. And to be honest, Day'Ron Sharpe is a little harder to me because he gives the Nets so many valuable minutes as a plus rebounder, hopefully a plus shot blocker, but overall his efficiency numbers compared to a guy like Nick Claxton absolutely puts a smile on your face and is enough to keep him around. But Nick Claxton, another vet I could absolutely see the Nets shopping, whether it be this season at the trade deadline or you even hoard him till next offseason as part of that 3 years left on his $4 million on his 4-year deal, for $100 million inked last offseason. But he's another guy that the Nets could trade. So they have a lot of options if they want to get rid of some guys, clear up space on this roster. Smash the like button. Hit subscribe here on the Brooklyn Boys podcast on attempt number 2 of a offseason 1.0 check-in because our first one got cut short due to technical difficulties. You guys in the chat were not able to hear me, but appreciate you all tuning in here on the second show or the second try here. Take King's advice. Like, subscribe, help support the show a ton. Throw all questions, comments, thoughts in the chat. I will try. I will certainly get to all of those. But again, comment section, take it up there. I want to hear everything you guys have to say regarding the Brooklyn Nets. On the other side of this break, today's presenting sponsors, Shoreline Sports Cards. Let's hear from them, and then we'll get back into the Nets offseason.
You are listening to the Brooklyn Boys Show with your host, Connor Long. If you're enjoying the show, drop us a sub and leave a like. It helps more Nets fans find us. Quick break, then back to talking Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Today's episode of the Brooklyn Boys Show is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Shoreline Sports Cards, located at 137 Main Street in Port Washington, New York. Whether you're chasing the newest hobby boxes, grabbing singles, or just want to talk cards with fellow collectors, Shoreline is the spot. They've got a massive selection across basketball, football, baseball, and more, with new inventory hitting the shelves every single week. If you're local, make sure to stop by the shop at 137 Main Street in Port Washington and check it out for yourself. If you're not in the area, no worries at all. You can still keep up with Shoreline by following them on Instagram, eBay, and whatnot for product drops, live breaks, deals, and hobby updates. All links are right in the description down below. Huge thanks to Shoreline Sports Cards for supporting the show and the Brooklyn Nets community.
You are listening to the Brooklyn Boys Show live with you on this Tuesday evening, August 19th for off-season update and recap 1.0. Smash the like button, hit subscribe. Helps us grow this community to fellow Nets fans, spreads the word, and again, appreciate each and every one of you tuning in here. It's the depths of the Nets off-season, but the content grind never stops thanks to you guys in the chat. And all of you guys who watch afterwards, I see and appreciate you also. Throw video ideas in the comments. You want to hear our Nets Mount Rushmore or something like that, let us know in the comments. We got some big things behind the scenes cooking up. And go check out our Substack if you haven't already. Connor and I have launched the BK Beat on Substack, so search that up, get that going for all your Nets news in written form. We will be posting on there a ton more as the season approaches. I am going to make an article version of this show coming up shortly. So thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you're following over there on Substack. And Connor and I appreciate all of the support. The offseason, the quick rundown, it was the trades, the 5 first-round picks, the Cam Thomas stalemate, all the jersey numbers, especially Nolan Traore repping 8-8 in the Brooklyn Nets jersey. That's an interesting one. And trying to shop the veterans again. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Rep NY is in the house. Appreciate you tuning in. You're the best. Good. Able to hear you again. Thank you, Rep NY. You were in my first chat letting me know that we were having some tech issues over there. So thank you for tuning in on both shows and pledging your support, sticking through us on the tech problem. King Ribby in the house. Still a Knicks fan as far as I can tell. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and share. Shout out Josh King. You're the best. My brother Micah is in the house. How you doing, Micah? Does Grant Nelson out of Alabama make this team? That's a really interesting question. Look, to me, I think I would give the edge to Fenbo Zhang. Again, Nelson, a guy that's, while he has the college experience playing over here in America, I would just give the edge to Zhang because, well, a guy that in the Chinese basketball league was averaging 20, I think close to 20 a game. I can pull up his stats here for an in-depth analysis, but Fenbo Zhang overall, I think, presents more upside than Grant Nelson, a guy who's, on the older side. And while this Nets team has the opportunity for anybody really to make this team at this point, Grant Nelson would probably be fighting for that two-way spot, and you only have one left. So I would give Fenbo Zhang the plus there if it came down to the two of them. But thank you for tuning in. Rep NY says, have a good night, and JETS, 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 Jets. Absolutely, my brother, a fellow Jet fan in the chat. So thank you for tuning in, Rep NY. You're the best. So Jets and Nets, that's the dual combo, I guess, both in rooting interests and suffering. So we'll see what happens there. I have Fenbo Zhang's stats pulled up here for the Beijing Ducks, where he was averaging 14 points a night last season in only 27 minutes a game. So just about a point every other minute, and was also dishing out 2 assists per game, rebounding, at a decent clip, close to 5 a game. 80% from the charity stripe, can't hurt at all. But overall, he was a consistent role player from that team and shot 38% from three. So Fanbo Zhang at 6'11" can definitely bring you plus in the size department as a good defender, and can help you in the paint as a 4. I would love to see a 4-5 of him and Noah Clowney. I think that would be interesting. Two guys that, on the taller end for forwards, but Clowney, another guy that we need to see develop. But behind Day'Ron Sharpe, if this Nets team moves on from Nick Claxton, Noah Clowney is absolutely someone I could see stepping up. Smash the like, hit subscribe. I want all your questions, comments, thoughts in the chat. So grateful for you all tuning in. I got 8 of you watching right now, so smash the like and hit subscribe. You guys are the best. Ready to wrap up here pretty soon. We talked all things Nets offseason up to this point. There's still a ton more to come. I'm sure Jordi Fernandez and this Nets front office has a ton cooking behind the scenes that we're not being able to see right now. But look, moving forward, I would love to see this Cam Thomas situation at some point come to an end, even if it's, bringing him back on the qualifying offer and shipping him out later. Just let's get this over with. Let's move on. If Cam Thomas isn't the answer for this Nets team at the point guard spot, so be it. Wrap it up, move on. I think, the longer we wait on the Cam Thomas situation, I'll say it, the more nervous I get, the more I think that he will not be a Net this upcoming season. But what can I say when a guy thinks he deserves X amount of money and the organization thinks he deserves close to $15 million left? Of course, you're going to come to a stalemate in the crossroads. And at this point, the question becomes, even if the Nets offer Cam Thomas a contract, does he feel disrespected, overboard too much to the point where at this point he's not even willing to come back on a contract that the Nets offer him? Boy, that would be crazy. But smash the like, hit subscribe. Thank you so much for sparing just a little bit of your Tuesday evening to be with us on the Brooklyn Boys Show. I am Josh Woolever saying good night and so long. Let's go Nets, baby. Have a safe night, everybody.